Understanding tariffs and how they're impacting you and the economy continues to be a hot topic of discussion. Dan McDicken, a licensed insolvency trustee from Faber, is here to break it down. Good morning to you, Dan.
Good morning, Corey.
Lots of talk about tariffs and attention to the ever-evolving tariff war. Where do we stand today?
Great question, Corey. I mean, the tariff war has been in a state of flux. And so let's talk about what's happened and where we're at today. In March of this year, the U.S. imposed tariffs, 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum, a 10% tariff on Canadian energy resources and critical minerals, and a 25% tariff on all non-energy resources. In April, they then imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian auto products. And in May, they then reduced certain auto product tariffs that were compliant with CUSMA, which is the Canadian-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. Then in June, they increased the tariff on our Canadian steel and aluminum to 50%. Right. And that essentially is where we're at today.
And how has Canada responded to the U.S. tariffs?
Well, Canada responded in March with retaliatory tariffs of approximately 25%, well, rough mark, on $60 billion U.S. worth of U.S. goods. In May, they revisited their retaliatory approach and created a 6-month exemption on all the counter tariffs imposed by the Canadian government on U.S. goods. Oxford Economics calculates that essentially has a nil effect on Canadian tariffs on U.S. goods.
Okay, now us as a consumer, how does it impact us, the tariffs?
Well, the Canadian counter tariffs on U.S. goods increases the cost for Canadians and Canadian consumers and businesses. The end result is it costs more to purchase U.S. goods, and it is creating inflationary pressures.
Okay.
Now, a positive announcement that came out of the G7 summit was an agreement by Prime Minister Carney and U.S. President Trump to reach a trade and security agreement within 30 days. That may be somewhat optimistic.
Yes.
Let us see how that unfolds.
Okay, so what is the impact of the U.S. tariff on Canadian businesses that export goods to the U.S.?
Well, that's a great question, Corey. What that does is it reduces the demand for Canadian goods purchased by U.S. consumers and businesses. And so that reduces the demand for Canadian goods. And there is a real risk that a reduction in demand will lead to business failures, rising unemployment, and a decline in our GDP, standard of living, as well as a decline in investor confidence in the Canadian economy.
Okay.
And so that concern is the driving force behind our business community, our provincial and national governments, to remove interprovincial trade barriers and to negotiate new relationships with international partners for Canadian resources and products.
So maybe spurring some good action on the part of our government and other governments as well.
I would agree wholly with you. That is, something that should have happened a long time ago. And so sometimes there is silver linings in dark clouds, as you might know.
For sure. I want to thank you so much for coming in and bringing us this conversation, Dan.
Thank you, Corey. Great to be here.
Great to have you back. And for more insight, contact Dan at faber.ca. And the information provided in this segment is of a general nature and is provided for information purposes only. It does not constitute professional financial advice. Please contact a licensee insolvency trustee before making any financial decisions.